Hello, and welcome to the Supplier Representative Training, or Corella, the new PLM system for renewables, GE renewables. Today, we're going to start off with explaining what the tool is and how to access it. Initially, all information will be placed on the Supplier portal page. On the Supplier portal page currently is links to how to use SDX. SDX is a tool that we use to communicate to suppliers and transfer information back and forth. We are replacing this tool with Corella. Corella will have several modules, and all will be accessed through the same site. The link to the site will be the same for both GE employees as well as supplier reps, so there should be no difference in what a buyer or a supplier quality engineer or an engineer sends you. This section will be replaced next week with information on how to access Corella. I'm going to close this and go over to a training page that will also be available to suppliers and linked on that supplier portal. This is an export from our wiki training section. Unfortunately, external users don't have access, so we've made a PDF version for the suppliers to utilize. Training can also be received through the e-sourcing help desk, so any questions can be received through them right after the onboarding process. Okay, we'll go through the onboarding process as well. I'll bring that over because onboarding will change with the onset of Corella. We've changed it so that it's easier, and all you have to do is call your GE representative, whether it's a supplier quality engineer, an engineer, or your buyer. Okay, you would ask them to please request access for you to access Corella. Okay, they have add buttons to add a representative in many different locations, and we give this same training to the internal users. But they can do it from their RFPQ, from their qualifications, or their collaboration spaces, or the supplier themselves. Okay, the training goes through that. There are very few steps to do the onboarding for internal users. They simply add your email address, which you will need to give them. If you are actually a GE employee in a different GE business, but you act as a supplier to GE, they would have to check the box that you are a GE employee and give a reason for you granting access to you to Corella. Okay. Once that is done, you as the supplier rep will actually receive an email with instructions on how to complete the onboarding process. In order to complete that, you will have to get a B2B SSO user name. If you already have one, you can skip that part of the process. There will be a two-factor authentication, making sure that you are indeed that email address owner, and then you will be asked to complete a few more steps in the process. Once those steps are complete, you will then request access to Corella, and the e-sourcing help desk will finish that off and provide training. This is just a basic process map, so it does show what the external user has to do. They have to get that SSO account, select their preferences, verify with email and the two-factor authentication. Then it gets approved by the help desk. The training will be provided, and then you can access the system. I'm going to remove this now. Like I said, the rest of the training is available in a PDF. This will be changing over time. We do plan to make it a living document, and we'll have to update it. If you have any recommendations for updating, please contact your buyer or the e-sourcing help desk, and we can make those additions to the system. The table of contents shows general information about the system, how to log in, things related to the supplier. As far as the icons, there are 5 main icons available on the supplier. Show those in the login page. So under general information, what is supplier collaboration? It's the primary method of technical data exchange with GE Vernova's wind hydro and wind business information. Primarily technical information, but it can be used for any other communications. It'll replace the SDX, box, and email communications that we currently utilize. And that begins on January 9th. It is a two-way interface, so not only can we send the part definition and other documents from our system, but we can utilize the system to collaborate on new parts, on their design, to get quotations, to send purchase orders, to do qualifications, and just generally transfer information back and forth. Supplier reps can access Corella after they get their SSO and they're approved. It's a much reduced or lean process that should take only anywhere from a day to a week. In the past, I realized it was 2 years, but we're hoping that we can show some. Once you log in, you would enter your SSO and password, and then icons will show up, and I'll show you each of these icons. This is just a brief description of what they are. And I'll actually go into the tool. So this is the login page. It tells you how to log in. As we go through the different icons, each icon is explained in the training, along with what its search page looks like and how to utilize it. Okay. There are instructions on how to filter the results that you are given, how to change your user subscriptions, which will reduce the number of sites perhaps that you have visible to you. It'll go through the site page, the main page, qualifications, as well as the vendor response or deliverables that you may be required to complete. Deliverables can be assigned to you in both a collaboration space as well as a qualification. Okay. There are process maps or swim lane charts outlining exactly what needs to be done, how to change your preferences, how to remove subscriptions, and information on that. If there's any questions, feel free to reach out to the eSourcing help desk. Okay, with that said, I'm going to bring over the tool. I am currently logged in a test environment. So the information you see here is not valid. It's just made up data. I am logged in as a supplier representative for the Grainger company. When you log in, you see certain icons. You can utilize those icons, or you can go to a table of contents or a navigation panel. You can pin that navigation panel so that it always stays open, or you can unpin it and it will close, giving you more screen space. I'm going to pin it for now and show you that under My Innovator, that's where your discussions and your in-basket are located. Under Sourcing, that's where the suppliers are located. And under Supplier Collaboration, you have Collaboration Spaces and Qualifications. Currently, wind is the only business using qualifications. Hydro is currently not using qualifications in Corella, but they will be in the near future. More to come on that, and your representatives will let you know when that's available for the hydro business. There are many communications that come for Corella to the supplier representatives. Those communications will have emails and links to qualifications or collaboration spaces that you need to access. It is very important to access those and find those because that is where your part definition for all your POs will be located. First, we will dive into collaboration spaces. This is the area that most suppliers will use on a daily basis. This is where our POs from our ERP systems will push to Corella and provide access to the part definition for all parts on a given PO or an RFQ. In addition, under collaboration spaces, there are not only ERP created collaboration spaces, but manual ones that get created for other reasons. I'm going to click on the collaboration spaces, and I'm actually going to unpin this. So I have a bigger screen. The first thing we'll see is the search page. If you got an email or you have a PO number, you can type that in under the collaboration space number. The collaboration space number, unlike SDX, does not contain any prefix. There's no SDXP, SDXR, or SDXQ. It is simply your PO number or your RFQ number, unless it is a manual space. If we type nothing in and we give no criteria and simply click search, we will get a list of everything that we have access to. You'll notice there's different numbering schemes. So POs, depending on what part of the world you're in or where they're being placed, will have a different number. You can also see what type of shared space it is. So these are POs. These were manually created for NPI. This was manually created for logistics. This is for some other purpose. But you'll notice that all manual spaces begin with M. Okay. You can have a manual folder that is created for an RFQ. So if we go down here, we have some that were manually created, okay, for RFQs or quotation purposes. But you can also, if that ERP system has the correct interface, you can have an RFQ from the ERP system, and you'll see the ERP source over here. If it's from wind, it will be a RACES ERP. If it is from hydro, it will be SAP. So that's a good way to notice which business is sending you the collaboration space. Okay. There is a state to everything. That is important, and it's more important with qualifications than it is with our collab spaces. But these states will become important. If it is in shared state or review state, you can still access part definition. Any other state, you will not have access to it. So that can become important if a buyer or a design engineer has created a collab space manually, but they have not yet shared it. Or if that collaboration space was closed, it would not show up in this list. Okay? The difference between shared and review is shared indicates that there is some sort of deliverable that the supplier still has yet to get approved. So they have to submit it to GE. GE has to approve it and release it. In review, that particular collab space has no supplier deliverables that need to be reviewed. They either never existed or they were reviewed and released. So now that moves it to the review status. Okay, if I'm going to open a PO. I'm also going to go back. You'll see this is a tabular structure, so you can have several things open at the same time. I can go back and open a manual space. And I'm doing a right-click open to open those. I want to show you the differences between a manual space and a space that's created by the ERP system that sends you your POs. Okay. You'll notice that the general information is the same. Okay. We have certain parameters that have to be filled in. You can see who created the space and who owns it. These should be your buyer names. In the case of migrated data, though, it will be data migration. Here you can see that it was created by myself. I own the space. So any of the supplier deliverables will come back to myself as the owner to get released or approved. If I compare the other tabs that exist between a PO and a manual space, there's one big difference, and that's on the top. So a PO that comes from an ERP, all POs have lines. So the lines relate the part and the part revision for each of the collab spaces. It'll tell you the quantity from the PO and the due date, just like the PO has. In addition, there's other columns. If something was canceled or closed, that would exist. But there's also a PDDR stale date. If there is no date here, the definition related to this particular part on this particular line is the most up to date. If there is a stale date, it's just letting you know that there is in process or has been processed an ECO change and this is no longer the latest and greatest definition. If the buyer or the engineer or the SQE wants to share the latest and greatest with you, they can do an update. You do not have the permission to update it yourself. That would be up to the GE representative. If they feel it's time to cut that definition in, they can update this and share the latest and greatest with you. But you will have a stale date here, and you can begin that conversation with your representative, and they can make that decision. Okay. So how do you access your part definition? I'll show you that in a minute, but first I want to go back to the manual space, because instead of lines, we simply have parts. So a manual space that's created, there makes no sense to create a part or create a line and then attach a part to it. So we just removed that step from our process. These are part numbers. They have different states. We can share part definition for any state. It can be preliminary, released, or obsolete. However, from the ERP system, we will only get released parts, because they have released or obsolete, I should say, because a part has to be released before it goes to our ERP system. And you can see the columns do change between a PO and a manual space. In the manual space, you get more information about the parts themselves. So what commodity, subcommodity, is it a serial controlled component, and what kind of compliance certifications do I need? There's also a design type. This is more important for qualifications, because is it build to print, is it build to spec, or is this an off-the-shelf type item? Okay. There's also a column for is generic. Those of you that understand generic and vendor-specific part numbers will understand what that is for. Most of you probably won't utilize that. But if this is checked, this is a generic part, and there's a vendor-specific probably for you that will come into play at a later date. Again, the stale date column is apparent. So if a definition comes through and changes and is available, there will be a date here of when this became not the most recent definition. Okay. Again, that conversation can be had with the owner of the collab space, and they can decide to update the definition and share that with you, or they can decide that you're only going to discuss things about this particular part and rev and that particular definition. It is important to know that when we say there's a new definition available, we're only talking about for this rev. So if a new rev exists, you're not going to get a stale date. That is a new part/rev combination. And they could add it to this, and you could have both rev 0 and 1 of a part on the same space. If you have both 0 and 1, you could actually compare those PDDRs. So to compare, you can do a highlight and click compare. There are 3 different options to compare part definition. You can compare it to the previous version of the same part. And when we say version, it's not revision specific, because within a revision, you can still have small changes, but it's the prior version. You can do any prior version of the same part, which includes revisions. Okay, so I can compare Rev 0 or Rev 1 to Rev 0, or I can compare it to a totally different part, because as we change things, if we change something that makes a difference in fit, form, and function, GE is going to give it a new part number. So you may have access to both part numbers and want to compare them and see what the difference is. When you click these, you'll be given a search screen. That search screen either is pre-filled with what you have access to, or you may have to click the search. So if I click search and nothing comes up, in this case, there was no prior version to compare to. So I can cancel it. Okay. If there is a prior version available, I can select that from the list. I'm going to go ahead and select compare to another part. When I search there, the list of parts I get could be different from someone else in my team, because it depends on what I've been given access to. This will not show all parts within Corella, only the ones I have access to. So if I want to compare the parts, I can just select one. I can put a search criteria in if I desire. If I do use a search criteria, so for example, this 146W part number, the asterisk is the wild card, so I don't have to remember the rest of this because this is the part number revision, the date that definition was created, and the time. Since I'm probably not going to know that, I can just utilize the asterisk and click search, and then only that part number will show up. So you can see these are all the different versions of PDDRs for that part. I can select any one of these to compare it to. Click OK, and now I'll get a new window. The red indicates that from this particular version to the next one, which this is in preliminary state, these items did not exist on this part. But if I scroll over and look at the one I'm comparing it to, you can see this little red X. Yes, they were removed. They didn't exist. And these were added. Okay. So all of these items existed on this part, but not on this one. And then on this one, we have the items in green that exist on this new part. Okay. This can be exported, so you can manipulate it any way you desire. To do that, you click on Export to Excel. Pop-ups do need to be turned off so that you can get to these, and you would open the file. That should come up in Excel in the same manner. Okay. I'm going to close that window. That is a new functionality that we did not have in Innovia, and we hope that is useful to you. It is important to know that with migrated data, there will be a lot of empty red, but as we move forward in the system, we should see better and better comparisons. Okay. Now, how do I actually see the part definition, the specs, the BOMs? That is a different page, and you can see this says form. This is where our PDDR is. It's the second icon. We click on that. We get another page. This should be a unique list of parts and revisions, because on your PO, I could list the same part over and over, as you see here, with the same revision. If I go to the PDDR on that one, there's only one part in one rev for that entire PO. Even though it's listed 3 times, it's the same part. I would click Show Structure. Depending on your screen and how you have it set up, this button may not appear. It may be a down arrow, and you would select the arrow for Show Structure to show up. I can highlight the part, click Show Structure. It'll transfer that over to the structure side in a collapsed version. If I want to just see the BOM, I would expand parts only. If there is a BOM, it would expand that BOM out, and I could export just the BOM. To see all the specs, I have to expand all. So if I expand all, not only will I see specs related, so just Word documents related to the part, but I will also see if they are verified, any CAD files. And CAD files can also be downloaded. In addition, if there is any supplier information related to the part or supplier parts, I would see that. This particular item does not have that, so it's blank. Okay. It's important to know there's also highly confidential information. Highly confidential information is not downloadable, and a checkbox would be checked if this was highly confidential. There is special permission that you can get granted access to highly confidential items, and you would have to request that from your buyer or your engineer. One important difference on this PDDR versus what you're used to seeing in the Excel spreadsheet is this column here. We've added a column to indicate to the supplier or whoever's logged in. So this is supplier rep 2. If you were logged in as yourself, you would see your ID come up. The system will look for this particular document, this rev, and it will look at every collaboration space and every qualification that you have access to for your company, and it will see if you've ever looked at this file before. So there are 3 possible options in this column. No, I've never looked at it. I need to download it. Yes, I've requested a download, but I haven't actually opened that download zip file and looked at the file. And yes, I've actually opened that file and looked at it. Okay, so it's going to take a look across everything. So for this particular collab space, I haven't downloaded anything yet, but you'll see I have a mix of what my icons are. And that's because this particular file is linked to a part used in a different collaboration space or qualification, and I've already requested the download for that. So in my email, I should have an email with a link to that part definition file. If I can't find it, that's okay. I can download it again. If I do not highlight anything and click download documents, I'm going to get everything in this list. But if I only want to download one part, then I can highlight the part. If I only want to download certain specs, then I can highlight those certain specs. I can use the same Microsoft Office quick keys that are used anywhere. So I can use a Control-Alt to just select certain files. Or I could use a Shift-Alt to select a whole range of files. Okay. If I click Download Documents, whatever I have highlighted, or if I didn't highlight anything, or if I just highlighted the part, I would get all of the documents related to the part. If nothing's highlighted, I get everything in here. So if I go back over to my manual space, for example, this is another improvement with Corella versus Innovia, is in Innovia, I can only look at one part definition at a time. In Corella, I can look at all of them if I want. Click Show Structure, and all the parts come over here. I can expand again and see the BOMs. So this particular part has a BOM. Okay? And I can see the quantities and the subcomponents. Or I can look at all the specs as well for all the parts at one time. And you can see I haven't downloaded any of these. Like I said, if I don't select anything and click Download Documents, I'm going to get everything in one zip file. If I highlight just a part and click Download Documents, I'm going to get just the definition related to that one part. If I highlight just a document, then I'm only going to get that one document when I click Download Documents. Okay? Regardless, this is not going to be immediate. It's going to run a background job and send you an email when all the results are compiled and placed in a zip file. It'll give you a link to that file, and you click that link and it will open up the results. If I want to see the old Excel spreadsheet, again, I would have to export it to Excel. Whatever I have over here is going to be exported. So if I only have one part number, I'm going to have everything for that one part. If I have 4, then I'm going to see all 4 parts in one PDDR file. Okay. I'm going to click Download Documents, and you can see there will be a pop-up. That pop-up will indicate to me that it's going to do a mass download and send me an email. Once I receive that email, then I can click on the link and see the files. You'll also notice, though, that all of these that said that I had not downloaded them now have changed to the folder, which indicates that I've requested the download, but I've not yet received the email, opened the email, and looked at the files. This is nice because once I do open the files, it will be replaced with a green check mark. I go to a different collab space and look at this. If I have already downloaded the file and I've put it in my own system or on my own computer, I don't have to download it again. As everyone who's used SDX realizes, we had some bandwidth problems. So if I'm going to download a huge amount of material, it may time out. In the future, I don't have to download a huge amount of information. I can just download one file or just the files that I haven't downloaded previously. This will reduce the number of timeouts that you experience and give you many more options of how you want to utilize the system. Okay. So I have received my email. This is the email that you would get for that download. It gives the name of who requested the download, the location that the downloaded was requested from. So this is a manual RFQ. This is the folder number or the collab space number. If it was a qualification, it would list that. If it was a PO, it would list the PO number. The date that I made the request. Okay. I can click that. If I'm already logged into the system, it's going to tell me that, hey, go to your main page, but it's also going to give me that zip file. I can open that up. And those are all the files in that request that I made. I can open those up and start reviewing them. Okay. I can save them, do whatever I need to with them. And I can refresh this. And I should start seeing wherever that went. The item is being flagged as reviewed. And I apologize, I lost that screen. I'm not sure where it went. We'll just do it again. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to go back to Corella. I'm going to clear this. I'm just going to look at one, expand it, just to show you that I can do one, I can do multiple, and I can keep doing it and changing it however I see fit. Okay. And again, it remembered that I've already downloaded these, but I haven't necessarily reviewed them. Okay. This one does have manufacturing part information. We talked about that before. So this should be your part number or the manufacturer AB wires part number for this particular part. And that's what's listed there. Okay. I'm going to go back to the collaboration space because that's the basics for POs. When we start talking about collaboration spaces and we're talking about designs, then you have to start paying attention to all the other tabs as well. So under documents, there could be other documents that are not related to part definition that you need to download and look at. Again, you can highlight all of these at one time, click download, and it will do a background job to download them. If you just want to look at one of those, though, it's actually faster to simply click on that particular line, open it up in a new tab, and go to the Files tab. The Files tab has the related file. You can click on that file name, and it will open directly on your system. That's much faster than waiting for an email and making sure you get it. So if you have the time to do that, or you're just interested in one file, I highly recommend that versus using the download option. Okay. Supplier site, that shows the supplier sites related to this particular space. This is test data, so there's more than one site for different companies. That should not happen in production because you wouldn't have access to both of those. If it does, please make us aware because that is a security breach that we will have to fix. You have supplier deliverables and you have GE deliverables. GE deliverables is when whoever owns this collab space wants information from another GE employee, and they would have a primary assignee that would provide that. And you could look at those files and you could actually download whatever information they put in there, as can anyone in GE. But this is not the primary area that the supplier would have to do anything with. This is just for viewing. Supplier deliverables are the old VRs or vendor responses. If there is an item here, it would have a VR number, just like this. Okay. It would tell you if it's required or not. There's only two options, that yes, it's required or it's supplier retained. the expected completion date. So this is saying that whoever owns the space wants me to fill out this template that's in the GE docs, upload it here before the 30th of 2022. Okay. Currently, the status, I haven't done that. It's not released. It's not in review. I haven't uploaded it. This color code indicates it's past due. Okay. This particular one has already been uploaded, reviewed, and is released. So that means it's good to go. If there's a reviewer on this, they would be listed as well. So the owner of this collab space has to review it, but there may be other reviewers as well. Okay. To access one of the VRs, you would click on the VR link. It would open up that deliverable, and you can see the document file section. This is where you upload any of the files required to complete this. So to do that, you would click the plus, go to your hard drive, pick out the file. You can add as many files as you need to fulfill this request, and the system will add them below. Once the files are all added and you've sufficiently added everything to meet this requirement, you can click submit. Submitting them will send it to GE so that they can be reviewed. You can see the status has changed because I uploaded it, but I did not submit it. This we had a problem with in Innovia, and people didn't always know if they submitted it, but now we have an indicator. So if you're ready, if there's no more files to be added, you can click submit here. It'll change the status to in review and send the owner an email letting them know that it's ready for them to review. Okay, so there it did change to in review. If we go back to the collaboration space, you can also see that changed here. Right now it says uploaded, not submitted. If we refresh this, because sometimes it gets out of sync, we can see now it's in review. As the SQE or the buyer or the collab space owner goes in and approves these will change to released. They can reject them. If they reject them, there'll be a new revision. Each of these have a revision number. So this is dash, but it would go to a Rev 1, and there would be a rejection comment, and you would get sent an email letting you know why it was rejected. Okay. If you made a mistake and it's still in review, but the owner hasn't reviewed it yet, you can also recall it. Recalling it is like you're rejecting this VR. So if I recall it, I'm going to get a Rev 1 next. I have to first give it a reason. The system will send the owner an email letting them know that you recalled it, you're still working on it. The status will change. It'll be blanked out, and this will go to Rev 1. Okay, so it's blanked out. We're now in Rev 1. The file remains. So perhaps you didn't want to remove this file. You wanted to add a new one. You can add a new one. But you also can remove files that you have existing. So you highlight it and click remove. So we have add and remove. Once the system's done, you can resubmit. It will go back to review, and it's back with the owner for them to approve the document or let you know if changes need to be made. Okay. That has to be done for each and every VR that exists in this system that says it's required. If it's supplier retained, you won't be able to add anything. If it's released, you won't be able to add anything. So I can open this up, but I'm not going to be able to add or remove anything because it's already released. Okay. When everything is released, the status of the collaboration space will go from shared to review. And that's just to indicate to the internal users that there's no more activity that has to be done by the supplier. You can still access the PDR up until this particular space goes to complete or canceled. Okay. And that's really all there is for collaboration spaces. The other icons that exist, we will review those next. But if you have no other use of collaborations of Corella, if you're not doing qualifications, then you could actually drop off the training now. Okay. I will show you that these tabs up here, you can close them one by one if you desire, or you can do a right click, and there are many other options. You can tear off a tab, which means this tab will open in a new window and be torn away from the rest. So if you have multiple workstations, you can move that over into a different screen. Okay, so there's that possibility. You can also do a right click and dock a tab. Docking a tab allows you to compare two different tabs. So I could open Collaboration Spaces and compare them on the same screen. Oh, I already had that one open. Let's open this one. Okay, I could even compare my part definition if they had the same part on it. Okay, this button up here allows the split screen. If I want to go back to one screen, I simply click on it and everything's back in one screen. Okay, like I said, I could dock this tab, undock it, change it any way I see fit. I can also close the tabs. So I can close all tabs, tabs to the right, tabs to the left. I'm going to close all tabs. Go back to my icons. What we saw before was just the collaboration spaces. For those of you that have qualifications, you can access qualifications through this icon. We can also access both collaboration spaces and qualifications from our supplier. So if I click on suppliers, I'm going to see all the suppliers related to my ID, anything I have access to. So if I'm a quality manager, I might want to look at every single site related to my company. If I'm just in fulfillment, perhaps I only want to look at my site. So there are ways that you can change that, and it's under preferences. You can also filter. So I can open up my entire company. That'll allow me to see all my sites and all my contacts. I can also see what parts I supply and what their GE part number is. All my open qualifications. And it's searching. That's what this is. When it's done, I get my data. I can see the total number is 291, but that total number is for all my supplier sites. Okay. If I go to supplier sites, I can select one site, the site I'm interested in. We'll say it's this one, and I can click filter results. Now this is filtered, and if I click search, I'll only get those results related to the one I have highlighted. Okay. And there's only 5 results. I want to change that. I can remove the filter, select a new site, filter again, and now I have 14 results. So that can cause confusion. You have to make sure that it's unfiltered to see them all. If it's filtered, you'll only get the items related to that particular site. Okay. In addition, if I want to unsubscribe from something, I can do that. I believe it's under Preferences. And Session. Okay. There is training for that. I'm not going to go into that. That's more in depth, but know that it can be done. I'm going to go back to this screen. So there's my open qualifications. It's already pre-filtered for me. to include anything that's open. If I want to see the closed qualifications, I can change this. This is a clear, my search criteria, and I can change this to conditional, and I can use my wildcard. I can use a separator so I can have multiple search criteria. That is the vertical line. And then I can say PPAP qualified. I'm just going to say PPAP and then click search. That changes what comes up in my view. So these are all the parts that I'm currently approved to send GE. Okay. Collaboration spaces. Again, this would be a list of all the manual as well as PO, and it's only the open ones. So it's initiate, shared, review, or incomplete. And incomplete is something that you won't necessarily see. You should only see shared and review at this point. And then if I just want to get a list of all my open deliverables, I can actually export this to Excel. That is under sharing, export to Excel, or export to Word. And every single deliverable I'm required to do with their expected completion date will show, so that I can manage that any way I want. Right now I have 114 open deliverables for this particular site. Okay. If I remove the filter and search again, which it's searching now, I can now see that I have 742 as an entire company that are due. Some of these are for qualifications, and others may be related to a collaboration space. Okay. I'm going to close these tabs and go to my qualifications, because that is the other way you can see qualifications. I can do a search. It's going to show me every single state, not just open, not just closed. I can sort them either by state or by number, just by clicking in a column. Okay. I can sort them by commodity if I supply multiple commodities. I can sort them by my SQE. If I know who my SQE is, I can simply put their name in. It is type ahead. So once you've typed it before, you can select them and click search, and you'll only get those related to that supplier or to that SQE. To clear your results and do another search, make sure you clear it. So there's lots of flexibility here. And again, I can export everything using my share, export to Excel, and manage it any way I see fit. To open one, again, you do a right-click open or double-click on it. You will notice that there are multiple qualification types now. We have a PFQ, which is a part family qualification, and an SQ, which is a supplier qualification, just your standard process or part qualification. When I open those, it will open in a new window. And instead of SDX being separate from the qualification, we have everything in one place. Okay. You are allowed to see items in all the states for qualification, and you will be getting emails letting you know that the qualifications are coming. We will do that ahead of time using other processes within the system, allowing you time to have access to whatever parts may be there. Review it so that you can prepare for the kickoff meeting. Okay, so if it's an initiate, we're allowing you access to the part definition so that you can prepare for the kickoff meeting. During the kickoff meeting, the qualification deliverables will be reviewed, whatever they are, and expected completion dates will be decided, along with, when do we think can we commit that this can be done? Okay, we're going to document everything about a qual in this one space. So we'll put meeting minutes in. We'll document when we actually had it versus when we planned to have it, when our first piece is going to be committed to be delivered, and when the whole thing we're going to commit to have completed. In addition, we have the conditional approval or a PPAP approval. If we're conditionally approving you, you may need to have other deliverables at a later date, and we're going to review them at a later date. So we're going to put the conditional review date. We can change it over time. If we do change it, there's got to be a reason. Okay. If it is a conditional approval, you will have additional deliverables under the conditional tab. Okay. But again, you can see your parts. You can see if a fit up is required on the part, or if that part is being disqualified. You can see your PDDR. This is the date and time that that PDDR was created or released. If it's stale, you will see that as well. You'll see a lot of different part properties, so you can see if there's any compliance information that's related or needed, and if it's a build to print or a build to spec. You can see the team members for the qual. These are added by the SQE. Anyone who requested the qual will also be added. They may not participate on a day-to-day, but they would be part of the team and get updates as this qualification goes through the system. Okay. You can also see any of the engineers or the materials folks that are related to this qualification. Supplier files is a location where you as a supplier may want to add additional documents for GE to see. Something we didn't request in deliverables, but you think is pertinent. You can add those here. You can only add them while it's in process or in conditional state. And this button would be highlighted, allowing you to add or remove files as needed. Okay. These other items you can't really do anything with. Suppliers can really only utilize or upload documents here or here. There is a sign-off page, and you can see for the given qualification, or if you're on a deliverable, who has to sign it off for the next step. Okay. This hasn't been initiated yet, so there's nothing there. Once the SQE decides to move this to kickoff, they will vote it forward, and there'll be another activity here for them to complete as well. Okay. Again, to access your PDDR, it's the same as it is for a collab space. You can access one part at a time or both by highlighting them both and clicking Show Structure. Okay. With these parts, if there's any more information, there will be a plus. You can show just the bill of material by doing parts. There's no bill of material, but there are specifications. You expand all to see the specifications. If you need to download the document, you can highlight that one document and download it, or you don't have to do anything and it will download everything related. Again, downloading documents, it'll run a background job and send you an email and update the icon to show that, yes, I've requested it. I need to look at my email. And when I get the email, I can click the link to find the zip file containing that. That's really all there is for qualifications as well. There is more. Obviously, we have some advanced usage that once people get used to the system, we can train on that, but I'm not going to include that today. One of those items will be the use of discussion panels. So discussion panels are chats related to a specific qualification or collab space where I can communicate with my buyer online. So I can put a comment in. If I send it to the world, everybody who has access to this space will get that. Otherwise, I can send it to just one person, and only that person would see it.